has happened. There's a dispute between the contractor and NHA, and this dispute is in the court of law, and one appeal has been dismissed, but the other appeal has come in. Look at the number of hours which I had to use from my working time in order to reach Chandigarh. I could have done this in 3 hours, which I do from Islamabad to to Lahore, which is about the same distance. But I couldn't do it. I took 5.5 hours because there were detours. So infrastructure is something which you need to do. And every time I talk to Montec, he tells me that this is our biggest impediment as far as our own economic growth is concerned. And Planning Commission in every plan has actually allocated a large amounts of money for infrastructure. In Pakistan also, logistics, supply chain, and infrastructure need to be improved, particularly the railways, the ports, and the airports. I mean, I commend you to go and see the Hyderabad, airport in your part. I mean, you should have those kind of airports like Delhi and Hyderabad all over India, Bangalore, Bombay, Madras, every city, and we should have the same. The border crossings, you have done a good job in integrated border crossing, but that needs to be done on Pakistan's side also. The railways should move, taking the freights, and the NLC should be held back because the road transport cost is much higher and the carbon dioxide emissions are much greater. So if we are looking at the climate change, I think we have to think about this fossil fuel reduction, and that can be done through the railways, as Mr. Yawar Ali very rightly pointed out. In Pakistan, we have to move away from all these SROs, the statutory regulatory orders, which give benefits to certain individuals or certain firms and do not make a level playing field. These are what I call as behind the borders reforms, which the countries themselves have to do. Nobody else will come to them. Then I come to across the border reforms. And what are the across the border reforms? We all know that no trade can take place unless you have the banking and the financial services. The first point of contact for any foreign investor or trader is to go and talk to the bank of his own country. This is a normal practice. I signed in 2006 an agreement with Governor Reddy for opening branches of 2 banks in India from Pakistan and 2 branches of Pakistani banks in India. Today, I'm standing in 2014. That agreement subsequently ratified by my predecessors, and Subbarao and others has not yet seen the light of the day. We still do not have the banking. You don't have insurance. You cannot establish letters of credit. So what do? You go through Dubai and you get your goods and services at a much higher cost to the consumers of both the countries. So please try to get the banking and the financial services in order. Secondly, this whole survey, I must commend you, shows that business facilitation, custom and documentation, product standards and harmonization, these have created at least some, if not factually, but mythical impediments in the minds of some of the other exporters. As Torab very rightly pointed out, and I have to completely endorse what he said, the mindset of the Sialkot manufacturers and exporters is totally different from the rest of the country. And if we had more Salcott exporters in the country, we would be not 25 billion, we will be about $100 billion of exports. Because they take things in their own hands. They don't wait for the government to have the airport or the sea or the deep dry port or the roads or whatever. They do it themselves. And they were telling me that they want to do more exports to India, but all these impediments on standardization, on the quality control, on custom facilitation, on the clearances and others, they have not tried. I asked them, have you tried them? They have not tried. But at least on the mental image is that they are at a disadvantage compared to the big boys who have the connections and who can do things. But SME sector will play an important role. Amritsar to Lahore is just 1 hour drive. And they can take goods which are required in Amritsar, and from Amritsar they can bring in the raw materials and other parts which are needed by them. So why is it that you could not do? I sat at the Indian School of Business in Mohali. I was there. Mr. Munjal was there also. And we had the Haryana, Chandigarh, Delhi Chamber of Commerce. They're meeting with the Indian School of Business. Mr. Munjal has set up a center there for industry-academia interaction. I happened to be there at that day. The electrical transformers and gadgets which are badly needed in this site, and he has the factory on Amritsar. So what I'm trying to say is that the regional growth poles which are natural, like Lahore, Gurdaspur, Firozpur, Amritsar, that's a triangle which can be developed for the benefit of all these countries. Similarly, in Bikaner, Bambar, and Jaisalmer, and Tharparkar and Ghotki, they can become the regional growth poles. And the benefits to these backward districts will be enormous. But you have to make both the infrastructure as well as opportunities for trading and investment available on both sides. So that's another idea which I have thought about as to why Shenzhen in China was able to take off, because it was next door to Hong Kong, and the Hong Kong Shenzhen Special Economic Zone were interdependent on each other. And then Shenzhen now has beaten, I will say Guangzhou province has beaten Hong Kong, but Shenzhen has overtaken, Shanghai has overtaken Hong Kong as far as the hub is concerned. So there are opportunities. We are way behind being Shanghai, but at least we can follow that path, which is of the regional economic growth poles and the special economic zones. So what is the third part of my talk, which is we have behind the borders reforms, across the border reforms, but the third part is around the trade. This around the trade is very important, and I have already talked about the FDI, but the connectivity is extremely important. As my pet subject is that this is the only country where I come from, Pakistan, where I cannot use my mobile phone to talk to anybody outside India, because the roaming is not allowed. Now, how can you have business relations between India and Pakistan if you are not able to talk on mobile phones, or you don't have the visas? Of course, I was very happy to hear the two commerce ministers going to implement the visa agreement, which was signed a few months ago, and I hope that the businessmen can get. But it's not only the businessmen. It is different kind of exchange programs. We nominated 4 of my faculty members to attend a case study conference at IIM Bangalore. Only one of them, because he had a Canadian passport, he was given visa. 3 of them could not get the visas. So they were unable to go and participate in this conference, which was extremely important because this was a South Asia conference and we wanted to learn from each other. We have partnership with the SP Jain Institute, Indian School of Business, IMT Ghaziabad, and every time it takes me to call our own High Commissioner in order to get the visas for the faculty members who were coming from then. And this is not a normal practice which should happen. And normally, you should have exchanges between the students and the faculty members so that there's a goodwill created between the 2 sides on each country. And we had very good discussion, and I totally agree with you that we must try to take advantage of the interest each country has in the culture, music, art, entertainment, sports. I mean, there's no single event which is so popular than India-Pakistan cricket match. In Lahore, in 2004, there was a match, and 10,000 Indians crossed the border to watch that match. And when they went back, they had all kind of positive stories to tell because some of them had never seen Pakistan. And this is how the public opinion is shaped. And this will not happen overnight, but this will happen over time. If there are more Pakistanis coming here and more Indians going there, they will see for themselves and they will try to disabuse themselves of all the fears and all the misperceptions and the apprehensions they have. So what we have to do is not only work on the trade, but other than trade, the exchange of people, exchange of ideas, exchange of technology, exchange of information with each other, and intensify the connectivity. Most of the suspicion and the mistrust and the apprehensions arise because there is no communication. And if you have communication, you articulate your own viewpoint, your own concerns, you listen to the other person's point of view, and by the end of that conversation, either you have disabused yourself of those prior notions, or you have convinced the other person that this is what you need to do. But whenever we have an incident, we completely stop our conversation. We terminate our dialogues. Those are the times when we should have more intensity as far as our dialogue and conversation is concerned to diffuse the situation. But we become totally alienated and we don't talk to each other. That is not what is really required. So let me end, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions, to say that there is a need for a paradigm shift as boat, where sometimes we are up here and sometimes we are here. What we need is steady, maybe slow, but a steady course which will take us to our destination. Thank you very much.